planning for like millennials or baby boomers, or you just like have to factor in people's demographics. He just like said it like that. And one of the guys in front was like really zeroed in on the fucking generational thing. And he's like, well, what makes a millennial a millennial? And he's like, and then the
He
speaker
was just
like,
being an asshole in the front.
yeah, and the speaker like fell for a hook, line, and sinker. He's like, well, millennials are typically a little more this way, and they do this different, and blah blah blah, and they're born about nah. Guy in the front, he's like, well, I fit all those criteria, but I don't identify as a millennial. And the speaker looked at him and goes, spoken like a true millennial.
Oh shit! Shut it down real quick.
Yeah, I did. It was funny as fuck because that guy was just trying. The guy in the line of questioning was trying to be so um serious and like sincere about it, and the guy that was just answering the question would just be like, "Well, sorry about you, bud."
Dude, I had a couple of those moments at UWL where it was. Do you remember my Women in the U.S. Economy class?
I'm sure I don't remember that, but I'm sure you had a field day at it.
It was just it. Not that it was wrong anyway. I mean, I took the class because I thought it'd be interesting, and it killed two birds, one stone: gender studies, economics, all in one thing. But I was taking the class, and at the beginning was okay, and then she starts just this professor who I'm sure she was a nice lady, but she tried to skew everything she could in line with her bias and wouldn't take any sort of, I guess, contradictory thought ever.
Well, dude,
And
welcome
she
to higher
brought in this,
education.
yeah, she brought in this fucking study that was talking about, we were talking about Title IX sports.
Yeah,
And this is something obviously I personally hold near and dear to my heart because Title IX's kind of fucked wrestling. I don't think it's bad. I'm very happy that it's opened up more opportunities for women to play sports,
but
but it's
wrestling's an
for the
easy sport to
smaller
cut.
sports, for
Yeah,
the sports that I cared about, it really fucked us. So I thought there could have been a better way to do this. So she's already shitting in my lane. I'm like, all right, cool. And there was other people in this. There was a lot of athletes in this course because I said it killed two birds, one stone.
yeah,
If you were an econ major, you have to take a gender studies class. That's something a requirement for graduation. If you're an econ major, it fulfills that requirement and allows you to do another class towards your major.
sure.
So there's a lot of athletes that take econ. So there was a lot of athletes in this class. So it wasn't just me.
Mm-hmm.
But this lady starts bringing up this, and she touches Wisconsin football. This is who she decides to go after as the
Oh
program
no.
she decides to touch.
Oh no.
And if people aren't from Wisconsin, you don't know that that's a program you don't touch. You don't talk shit about Badger football. It's like the Packers. Like it's like a religion.
Yeah,
So
dude.
she starts going after the fact, bringing up like studies from like 1990, talking about how Badgers football actually doesn't make any money and that
Mm.
it's actually costs the university more than it helps, yada yada, talking about how like big men's sports are actually a hindrance to the economics of a university. It's again using 1990 study.
Yeah.
Well, I think she made this lecture before people had laptops.
Mm.
So it wasn't me, thankfully, but
You
other
definitely
people.
would have though.
I was already doing it. It's just somebody beat me to it, which kind of hurt. But somebody else decides to look up the most recent stats that were released and turns it around in front of her and says, everything you just said is completely wrong. Here's what the actual stats are right now.
Yeah.
This lady had a fucking like a panic attack and ran out of the
Oh
room.
no.
Oh yeah. Yeah. This chick's
Oh
like straight
no.
up, this chick sucked. Like
Oh no.
she was just, I mean, she was a prototypical Karen. Like she was
Yeah.
offended for everybody else because
Well,
she has nothing wrong going on in her life.
again, like it's, and I know we talk about like academic studies and academia, but like you can make a study say whatever you want, and then when you get really in trouble when you start cherry picking data, right?
Exactly.
Like early on in my collegiate career, like this was like, and I guarantee this is how kids still write papers. It was, here's your prompt, here's your topic, all right? You need to write an essay about this, whatever. Okay, let me write what I think I know, and then find studies to back it up,
Right.
right? Which is
Like,
the absolute wrong way to do research, but that's how you get by writing essays in college. So it's like, but yeah, I mean, you start cherry picking, and then Professors or the people that are writing studies have a ton of inherent bias that they put
Dude,
into their paper.
it was fucking wild. Like
Yeah,
the she was trying to make the point. The point she was trying to make is that there should be more smaller women's sports than all of the money going towards football or all the
which
money
yeah,
going towards basketball.
which sure in
But
your altruistic utopia, absolutely.
but no, here's the deal. This is women in the US economy. Economy is the main part of this fucking class.
Yeah,
If we look at economics, what sport makes the most money?
hmm,
We are in a meritocracy at the end of the day. Like, don't you think universities are going to do the thing that's going to bring in money? If all those small women's sports brought in money, guess the fuck what? That's what they'd be pushing money towards.
yeah,
Like, she's trying to use these like faulty stats that she's manipulated and cherry picked in a context to show her proof without having a solid plan to actually put that proof in action.
yeah,
And that is one of the major arguments that bugs me is like people in at least in my university experience, granted I went to UW Crosse, which was relatively neutral, and then I went to fucking Portland, Oregon, which is relatively not neutral. And in my experience, it's so many people in the academic institutions care about the book. All they care about is the studies that they can find to support what they say. They don't actually care about the application of anything. They don't care
yeah,
about what the real world is. They care about the theoretical world of making it look good on paper. And that's just not the fucking case. Like
yeah.
you cannot take everything that's on the paper and make that real life. If you could, everybody that has a doctorate, everybody that's a medical doctor would have perfect case history. There would never be any mistakes made ever.
Yeah, and like I get that though. Like I personally like I have fun in that theoretical space. Like I think that theoretical space is fun to explore, and then you can like thread out a bunch of ideas, and then yeah, like you said, it's thought experiments that like have no consequence, right? When you're in that theoretical world and you're like, this is the right way to do things, this is how it should be done. Like I can see how this model will work, blah blah blah. But then you get into the factors of the real world, and it's just not practical, right? So
Well,
that's your
they
mistake. Is
here's the
like
deal. They have consequence when you teach 30 other kids to say that that's how the real world operates.
right,
That's
and
when that's a
I'm gonna
consequence.
say that's the mistake is like mistaking and saying that this theoretical world is the real world, right? That they're two
Yeah.
very different things, and then in the real world you have so many extraneous or like details or factors that you just can't plan for or have to uncover, right? Have to do the real world research to get there. But yeah, it seems like with every profession, and this is something that I'm noticing right now in my professional kind of ventures is that in every profession there's like a textbook taught way to do things
Yeah.
and then there's a real world way to do things,
Oh yeah.
right? And then in a similar vein there's like the game of being the profession, right? Like there's the identity of being a strength coach, and then there's that game and playing and getting better yourself, and then there's the other game of actually serving athletes and serving people in front of you, right? I
Right.
feel I've seen those two dichotomies very apparently, like again talking to interns and going through and watching coaches, and it's like yeah, you can learn and read as many textbooks as you want and that knowledge base might help you, but like if you're not getting hours on the floor and interacting with humans in front of you, like what are we doing?
Yep. Nobody cares that you know the difference between well, I guess they do a little bit, but nobody really cares that you can explain to them right in person the difference between like alactic power, aerobic power, lactic capacity. Like they need you to
Yeah.
know that. They need you to know that on the back end. They
Mm-hmm.
don't care about you saying that on the front end. They
Right.
care about how much do you care about them? How much are
Yeah.
you willing to invest in them and that they're going to invest back into you? That's what they care about.
Right. And then there's another like inherent like subtlety, but like everybody kind of notices it as like, are you coaching for yourself? Or are you coaching for the athlete? Right.
Yep.
Like, and I probably fell into this trap a lot early on where it was like, I'm the main character in this session. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And like, and there's a couple different ways to do that. Right. Like, yes, as a coach or as a professional, you should be continually striving to be the best you can at your craft,
Right.
right? Like I genuinely believe that. But in the session, it has to come through a moral or an ethic to serve others and to genuinely get these people where they need to go
Oh,
versus like, versus I'm only doing this session so I can get better, right?
Right.
Like,
I would argue that you should be able to do both. Like coaching for the athlete is coaching for me.
yeah,
Like that's a concept that good coaches have where if it truly is what you're supposed to be doing, you helping that person also fills your cup as well. And
yeah,
it makes it about you because you know you're doing the right thing, you're doing the right job. And
yeah,
so many people think it has to be like, oh, it's about me, or oh, it's about the athlete, and I have to be totally selfless. It's okay to make it about the athlete, and that also makes it about you. Like I get proud when my fighters win because I know I had a part of that, right?
yeah,
Like that makes me happy, that makes me excited. It's
yeah,
not me stepping into the cage, but it is my reputation on the line when they go out there and perform. And that's that dichotomy of so many people think it has to be one way or the other. It has to be completely selfless or totally selfish. And in reality, being selfless is kind of selfish in and of itself because you're putting your vested interests into that person in front of you.
yeah, yeah. That's a unique take on it for sure. Because yeah, if you're not maintaining the ship and you're not keeping up with yourself, you're not going to be. I mean,
Well,
that's
because
a
I
big
give
self
up
help
so,
wave.
like thinking about my side of things, like I give up so much to invest into my athletes. Like I I could be with my wife. I could be hanging out with my family. My family now lives in Arizona. I could be doing like fun things on the weekends. I could be doing all these different things. It's selfish for me to be selfless because it takes away from the people I love sometimes.
Yeah,
But that selflessness is what allows me to feel like I'm good at my job. It makes me feel like Superman when I'm on the floor or I'm in the treatment room because I
yeah,
know that I do everything I can to be as good as I can at my job.
yeah. That's true. But I think that it's a sliding scale too. Different people land on different places in that, and then when we get into problems is when people either don't recognize or misalign themselves with that balance of, you know, I don't work life boundaries or selfishness, selflessness. Um, like for me, like I slide on that scale. I slide a lot more towards the I don't even know which side, but more towards spending time at home rather than investing extra. Like I one of the things that I set a firm boundary on, especially after my last job, was I'm not gonna coach on Saturdays,
Yeah.
right? Like, I get it. Like Saturday is a big market, and you can get a lot of Saturday morning clients, but I look at it as if I'm in the gym at 6 a.m. every day of the week, and I've grinded my hours Monday to Friday. I became such a pessimist or such a negative energy on Saturday morning. It's like
Yeah.
I got to go do this shit again, right? Where like I'm a huge believer in the environment of the gym and your mindset going in. Like you set the tone, right? And if I'm that mindset and then I have to force myself to fake it or have to figure it out on the fly, like because one, I'm not going to give people a bad experience. That's just not an option, right?
Right.
But if I'm forcing myself to fake it, that's going to wear on me, and then I'm gonna have to do that more often. Then I'm gonna be less satisfied and blah blah blah. So it was like Saturdays, that's me. That's my time, right?
Yep.
But I'll be there until 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m. on Friday.
Right. And I'm the opposite.
Right.
I'm like I today this week was the first week in fucking probably 3 months that I didn't take a half day on Friday. When I say half day, I mean like in the clinic. Like I'll definitely be on Friday afternoons. I'm still working building a fighter shit, but like
Oh,
as far as patient care hours or athlete hours, I don't take Friday afternoons. But it's because
yeah.
I work Saturday mornings. If I did Friday afternoon, like this week, I did Friday until 5:30 just because I had an athlete getting ready for a big fight and I needed to make sure he was good
Yeah.
before he went back to Vegas. And then I had Saturday morning, and I had to be there at 6:30. I was
Yeah.
fucking exhausted all day. Yes, like we were hanging out last night.
Yeah.
We were
Yeah.
watching the fights. I was like falling asleep right before the Robert Whitaker fight,
Yeah. And I
and
like tapped my iPad. I was like, hey,
yeah,
wake
yeah,
the fuck
like
up.
wake up. And I'm like, I was just exhausted, and like I just found out again, like this week, I'm like, I cannot go back to the clinic after sparring on Fridays like
Yeah.
because I leave the reason I take a half day is so that I can go to sparring and coach my athletes, and normally I'm able to go home and then go do whatever computer work I got to get done. But I went back to the
Yeah.
clinic And that extra 3 hours just made me so much more exhausted than I normally was.
Yeah, man.
And so I found that boundary.
Well, it's different when you have to be turned on versus when you have to be turned off, right? But like,
Right.
it's
That's something funny because I've learned I used to fucking hate computer work and like boring work. I used to think it was like useless. And now
yeah,
I almost find like solitude in it where like it allows me to use my brain but not have to, I guess this is going to sound really bad, care about other people's emotions. Like I don't have to listen, I don't have to be on. It allows me to be like active in thought, but I don't have to be on emotionally when I do it.
yeah, dude. Being client facing and being in front of somebody is so socially draining, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Like I get it. The service industry is a huge industry, and some people are really good at it and have that skill. But like a strength conditioning coach, I guess like corner of that world, right, is like such an odd intersection of like, strength coaches a lot of times are introverts and like really like to train. Like training is the main thing, and then the interactions and the personal service part comes second, right?
Yep.
So and then like when you become high level of your job, like that client interaction and the personal service has to come first and then training secondary or whatever. But that's so exhausting. Like, especially, I mean, probably it varies individually. Like, some people gain energy from it. I've met those coaches too.
Yeah.
But
Like,
yeah,
dude, I work with Jeff. Jeff gains energy when he's talking to other people. Like when
dude,
he's
it's
like
wild.
throughout the day, like he gets more excited when he talks to more people. And
It's wild.
he's built for it. That's awesome. But
Yeah.
that's also why we are pivoting more towards building a fighter
Yeah.
because we don't have to be as in person as much, but we can still offer a high quality product and help a lot of athletes
But yeah,
where
talking
it's
about
best fit for us.
the computer work though and that solitude, like I've also taken a lot of solace in that that's the only part of like the only real part of our job that you have a tangible um finished product from,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
you sit down, you write a program, or you sit down and you create an app, or you sit down and you redesign our website or whatever. Like you have something like, this is what I made, this is the thing I just spent 4 hours on, and I can show you what I did, right?
Yeah.
Like with clients or athletes, like you do the training session and like you can track some metrics, you can do this or that, but like a lot of the gains are, they like seem theoretical in the moment, right?
Right.
Because it's not like, oh, look at that, his chest grew 2 inches from that session. Like you don't get it, you don't get a
Right. The immediate
tangible,
feedback.
exactly, like that's not as apparent in our field. So um that's what something I like about it, is that when you sit down and you write the program, or you sit down and we do some of the back end computer work, you get a physical output at the end.
Right. Well, and yeah, you get the immediate gratification
Yeah,
versus everything we do in strength and conditioning or in healthcare is
it's
delayed.
delayed.
I mean, in healthcare, sometimes you get immediate, like you get a home run case, you take them from a 9 pain scale to a 1 pain scale on a visit, knowing that that's not going to last. But those cases are awesome. They make you feel like you're a fucking rock star. But for the
Yeah,
most part, you have to wait 4 weeks for that athlete to actually start feeling better, like really start feeling better.
and then even then you can only input, whatever 20% of your knowledge set, but like 80% has to come from the athlete, has to come from
Right.
their effort,
Yeah,
which
I'm trusting them
is
not to
beyond
fuck
your
it up.
control. Yeah,
Yeah.
which, man, inconsistency has been a frustrating piece recently.
Yes. Well, that's something I try to get across with every athlete I work with. I always say the whole like you are with me anywhere between 2 to 4 hours in this week. There are 160 other hours that you are not with me. Do
Yeah.
not fuck up that everything we did in these 4 hours with the other 160 hours the rest of the week. I need you to be smart and be a professional, like what's like your job, a professional MMA fighter.
Yep. 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 Yep.
I feel like too many people overlooked the professional in that side of things. Just because you're not like in the top 10 in the UFC doesn't mean you can't act like a professional. The people that act like the part are typically the ones that get further in the sport because they take it seriously.
Let's break that down for a second though, because I think of that in a strength and conditioning context a lot too. Is like, what the fuck does it mean to be a professional? What are your attributes to being a professional, quote unquote?
I think a major one is self motivation. doing what you think you should do, even when there's not a goal on the horizon,
So
or an immediate goal on the horizon, like a
I would probably
3 month
call
goal.
that discipline.
Yeah, like it's the self-awareness to show up on a Monday morning at 10 a.m. for a hard ass wrestling practice when you know you're not in camp because you know you have to get better at it.
Yeah,
That is being a professional.
yeah, or like even like the little things like showing up 5-10 minutes early for every session because that's what you should do.
Yeah.
Not
The other one is sleep.
yeah.
Going to sleep around the same time and getting at least 8 hours every single night. That is
Well,
called being a professional athlete.
well, again, I would rope those things into discipline, right? Like it's that concept of doing what you should do, doing what you know you should be doing, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that comes from creating, a high level habit and then staying true to it through and through. Like the most like quote unquote professional guys I can think of, they're you know at the 6 a.m. session 10 minutes early. It doesn't matter. It's the 6 a.m. They have that discipline kicked in that I'm gonna get there 10 minutes early, right?
Yep.
Um, they're consistent at practice even when, like you said, it's their off camp. They have a more, I guess, like consistency, discipline. Those things are huge. Um,
Well, it's so a good example for me, and I feel like I don't even work with this guy, but he's at our
yeah,
gym. But the definition of a professional is Henry Cejudo. He shows up. He doesn't even have the coaches run his practices. He shows up by himself and one practice partner an hour and a half before our team practices to run through his first practice to get all of his technique stuff that he wants to work on for the day out of the way.
yeah,
Self-guided. He does his own study. He figures out what he wants to work on that day. Our coaches are there early doing privates with whatever fighters need it, and they'll go over, give him some tips, and he'll be there for an hour and a half before the practice.
yeah,
He does that
yeah.
every single day on his own. And it's not a wonder why he's the best at what he does.
Right,
Because he does that. He has the drive to do that. And it's something that I've noticed and I've seen and I've loved that he does, and
yeah,
it rubs off on some of the guys he works with, and you see them coming in a little bit earlier. They start and come in, do their own routine before sparring or
right.
before practice.
Yeah, and I think that's cool, but I think too, like you're pointing out um, like very finite examples, right? Like get your sleep, sure. Like show up early and be self motivated. Like I agree, but like what are the more defining characteristics of that like professional landscape, right? Like we hit on like some of the self motivation, the discipline. I think I honestly think and I mean, I know we're going to disagree on this. I think maintaining appearances is one of the biggest things, right? Showing up,
Yeah.
having your equipment, being ready to go, being set, like looking the part, I think, especially like in a coaching setting. That's a little bit more, I guess, where I'm going with being a professional or like even the athletes, right? Like we're not showing up without our equipment. We're not like obviously just rolled out of bed coming to the workout, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
So I think maintaining a bare minimum on that side of things is
it,
quote unquote professional too.
Yeah, if you want to go like if you're thinking just straight big picture, because I have been using some small picture stuff, it's doing the little things right. That
There you
is
go.
the
There's a
overarching
principle.
theme of everything I've said
Yeah.
is because it is in my mind being a professional is everything I said, but everything I've said is just doing the little things right.
But
Anybody can do the big shit.
well, I guess, but what if I don't know what the little shit is? What if I
If you look, all right, if in this day and age with the social media and fucking the internet at your disposal, if you don't know what the little things are yet, then you live under a fucking rock. Then you're in bumfuck Alaska and you have no access to the internet. If
mm,
you have any social media at all and have any wherewithal, you follow some sort of professional. If you're listening to this, you follow us. Okay. For
yeah,
example, the only people that are listening to this are the people that follow us. They
yeah,
know now if they follow us, whether it be social media, YouTube, and or just our podcast, that getting 8 hours of sleep, doing the little things, falling asleep around within 30 minutes of each other, eating a balanced diet, making sure your workload's managed. All of those are the little things. I'm I'm actually really frustrated with people that say they don't know what the little things are anymore because that just means they're not even fucking looking for it. That's
yeah,
just that is a blatant excuse that people use and say, well, I don't even know what the little things are. That means you don't fucking care. Because if you cared, you would have found them by now.
Yeah.
I don't take that excuse anymore because I've had a few athletes say that. I'm like, well, what are the little things? And I have to explain it to them. And I'm like, I shouldn't be the first person explaining this when you're a 30-year-old athlete. You
Yeah.
should know this by now. And if you don't know this by now, that's not on me. That's on
Well,
you because
and
the
I
information is readily available.
and I guarantee you're not the first person to explain the little things to them.
Exactly.
But
So like if you don't do the little things right at this point, it's because you don't want to, not because you don't know what they are.
yeah, uh, it gets really hard though to follow and be consistent in those routines.
Like, it's really hard to be great.
Yeah,
Like, again, another excuse. Like it's really hard to be great. You got to wake up and you got to choose to be great every single day. It's not a I chose to be great on a Monday and then Tuesday through Friday I'm a shitbag. It's you got to wake up every morning, put your boots on, and say I'm going to be fucking great today. And those are the people that turn out to be champions. Not just in the UFC. They don't just get signed to a short notice fight and they have a 3-fight career. They're
I,
great and they're champions.
it's not as clear cut as that, but I like your optimism
It
because
well,
you
of
can
course,
do no. Listen to me out. Hear me out here. You can do all those little things fucking perfectly, and you can create the most high level, disciplined habits, right? And then it still might not work out.
for sure. Yeah, but
But to be at all in contention, to be even giving yourself the opportunity, those are non-negotiable.
right, but exactly, they're non-negotiable. Just because you did them all right and you failed doesn't mean you did the wrong thing. That just meant
Yeah,
that you weren't the right person for the job at that point in time. Because if you
yeah,
did every single thing right and you still failed, you came up short, you just weren't good enough. And not enough people are willing to admit that. Like my
yeah.
wrestling career, for example, I didn't do everything right, but I did everything right at least 1 year. At least 1 year, I committed like it was my junior year of high school.
Yeah.
I did everything right. Guess what happened? I took second in the fucking country at preseason nationals. Fucking, I wrestled my ass off, and I went to Fargo. I was supposed to place, and I broke my wrist the first match.
Mm.
I did everything right. I just wasn't the right person for that job,
So
and
you're
that's
saying,
okay.
so you're saying that there's factors that are within your control and factors outside of your control.
Yeah, you can't control everything, but everything you can control needs to be dialed in. That's what the greats do. And then sometimes it's a roll of the dice. Like, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of people. Think about basketball, for example. There's a lot of people that can go shoot the fucking basketball 300 times, 500 times, 1,000 times to work on their jump shot. There's one Michael Jordan. He was the right person for that job, and he did all the little things right. But then he was in the right circumstances and was born the right way to be
Hmm.
able to thrive in that environment. There is
Yeah.
something outside of your control. There's like nobody. There's John Jones. Some people are born like John Jones and they're perfect for the job that they decided to go after. But that doesn't mean if you're not born like John Jones, that doesn't mean you work your ass off to get
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fascinating concept trying to maximize your own personal human potential, right?
there. Right.
Because like regardless of like the external greatness aspect of it, regardless of what you like quote unquote accomplish, right? Like again, try your damnedest, do your best, and once you finally fine tune your habits and your disciplines and doing all the little things right enough, you're gonna maximize your own potential, and maybe you're the guy for the moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully you are, and that'd be awesome. But then you can also take some solace and some, um, I guess, peace or satisfaction if you're not the guy, but you did everything right and got as far as you
Mm-hmm.
could, regardless.
Yeah, the juice is always going to be worth the squeeze if you're putting it in, right?
Yeah.
It's even if you lose, even if you don't accomplish everything you wanted to, at least you can hold your hat and say that I did
Mhm.
everything I fucking tried I could have done to go after this goal and I
Yeah.
just came up short.
Well, that's
Versus
what I,
there's always the people with what ifs. If you
yeah.
don't do everything you could do, then you're just sitting there thinking, what if? What
Yeah.
if I could have been a champ? What if I could have been in the UFC? And
Right.
that's way worse than doing everything right and losing.
Well, and that's what I think of when I think of like Israel Adesanya in his most recent fight with Alex Pereira. Like after his post-fight interview was really cool, where he's like, I hope everybody gets to feel this, right? Like go for
Yeah,
something, like put yourself out there and like genuinely dedicate to something, and then like go all in for it, right? And
yeah,
so, and that's a again, that's an enviable, noble pursuit, I think.
yeah. It's a lot of people. It seems like a lot of people are just afraid. It's like it's like they went after something once, they failed, and now they don't want to go after something ever again because they failed and they felt like they did everything right.
Yeah,
And I come across that all the time as like they tried in wrestling or they tried in kickboxing or they didn't get that world championship they were looking for, and now it's almost like they're afraid to commit to something else because the juice wasn't worth the squeeze in their eyes, quote
yeah,
unquote. But every single time it comes down to they didn't actually do everything right. They didn't actually commit. If they committed, it probably would have taken care of it. If they committed,
right,
they probably would have gotten further than they did. If you dissect out them thinking they did everything right, and then you actually look at it, and they didn't go to sleep on time when they should have. They didn't eat.
yeah,
They took a bunch of cheat meals. Like when you're chasing perfection, when you're chasing greatness, unfortunately, other shit has to be go by the wayside. You're not allowed to have as much fun. You're not allowed to
yeah.
go out on the weekends. So you can't say you did everything you could have done because you didn't. And that's
Yeah,
okay.
I get that, but that's super easy to do from the outside,
For sure.
right? Like if you're doing
Well,
that
that's
to
our
somebody
job. That's
else.
our job as an auditor. We're auditing their routine. We're auditing what they do.
Yeah,
It is easy for me to do from the outside, but my job, I'm not the man in the arena. They're coming to me for help, asking why they didn't get the result they're looking for. It's my job to give them the harsh reality of you thought you did everything you could have done. You didn't. I'm sorry, but you didn't. If you want to go after this, we have to do more.
well, I guess that circles back to the original argument that I had too. Is like a lot of times I think when you go to like I did everything or I did everything I could, like there's a missing link because maybe what you're investing in shouldn't have been what you've been investing in, or like I didn't know I should be doing that thing. Like I'll point out myself as an example, right? When I was wrestling at, let's say high school, right? I invested so much in the physicality, the being in great shape, the
Yeah.
being stronger than everybody in my weight class, the um, ability to continuously have a motor and put pressure on guys. That I like point blank, I neglected a lot of technical aspects of the sport,
Mm-hmm.
and I got so far. But then, like when I come up short, or whatever, I'm like, why did I come up short? What did I do? And it's like I did everything I possibly could have done right, and that's again something I would say about myself there, but it's like you could have gotten extra technique sessions. You could have went and investigated that or that, but it's like I was ignorant to it.
Yeah. And some in high school, sometimes you are, right?
Yeah.
Um, but and sometimes there's a physical limitation. Like me, like it's no secret. I didn't eat right my whole career. I didn't sleep well. That's why I preach these things to athletes: is doing the little things right because I
Yeah.
didn't do it, and that's what limited me.
Yeah.
But I wrestled a kid named Bryce Brill,
Mm,
who yeah, exactly. You laugh because you're an Illinois kid. Bryce didn't have a great college career because he had some injuries and some concussions. But coming out of high school, he was the number one pound for pound kid in the country, number one of every single weight class, graduating class of my year. No matter what I did, I was not going to beat Bryce. I wasn't. Like I could have done everything right. Now I didn't, but I could have done everything right, and I still would have had the physical limitation of I wouldn't have beaten Bryce Brill because
yeah.
he was naturally better than I was, and that's okay. I've come to terms with that, but that doesn't mean that I couldn't have been really fucking close if I did the little things right. And that's something that, like, for me personally, to sorry, to bring the story kind of full circle is I will always go the rest of my life thinking like when I wrestled him, I lost fucking I think I lost 1-3-6-0 in a freestyle match or something like that. Back when we had the three different individual period scoring, I would have. I still what if I would have done the right things? What if I
Yeah.
could have done more? If I would have been out there and I would have lost on my sword, and just gotten beat as a human, I would much prefer that as opposed to me thinking like, well, fuck, if I would have actually prepared for that tournament, maybe I would have done a little bit better. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
maybe I could have won a period from him, something like that.
Yeah.
And that eats it. Like that type of shit eats at me, and that should eat at people that search for greatness. The small shit matters. Even that
Yeah.
one match that matters.
No, I'm curious too, though. And I know, I guess I don't even know. What's been your experience? And like, there is a negative side to this too. Like, I think a lot of people put so much pressure on themselves. Like, we're talking about doing every single thing right, like curating your personal habits around sleep, around diet, around like every single minute of your day is lived correctly. You're doing every single thing right. Like, there's a lot of high anxiety and stress and um, pressure that comes with that. What's been your experience like dealing either with yourself or with athletes that go through a lot of that?
Um, I I think there's two things. One, the politically correct answer is I think I try to push all my athletes towards working with some sort of sports psych.
Yeah.
Um, I believe that sports psych is extremely valuable, and
Mm-hmm.
being able to, I guess, correlate your thoughts and really program your thoughts, kind of similar to strength and conditioning, is invaluable because you know you're going to feel these different emotions, and you got to know how to deal with them when you get into certain situations. Now, my personal thought is I think certain people are born for greatness, and certain people can handle the anxiety that comes along with it better than others.
Yeah.
Certain people's their blood pressure doesn't rise when they get into big events, when they get into big arenas. Like, again, from what I've heard, I've never been on a Cejudo fight week, but I've heard he's more calm on fight week than he is through the entire camp because he feels at home. Like I was working with he's only like 3-0, but this boxer, absolute savage. His name's Paul Torres, and I was there for his professional debut, or no, not his pro debut because I was in Mexico, but I was there for his first Phoenix fight as a pro. And this kid's like an up and comer, young kid from Phoenix, from Maryvale, had a lot of fans, and he went out there and knocked him out in I think the second round, and I asked him like, "How'd you feel?" And he's like, "I don't think," and he said it perfectly. He's like, "I don't think I've ever been more calm in my life," and you saw it in the ring, where
Yeah.
he said after he said that he's like, "I felt at home." And that made
Cool.
sense. I'm like, certain people are born for this. This is what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And certain people, it goes back to those intangibles of some people are just born for it, some people aren't. Some people shy away from that moment. Everybody knows that guy that's amazing in the gym and gets fucked up in the cage.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that guy that gets fucked up in the practice room and turns it on in the cage. And while you can work on that, there is going to be a ceiling for that. Some people just aren't made for high pressure situations, and that's okay. And those people are just going to be the ones that you got to train your ass off. And you can get as good as you possibly can, but sometimes you can't reach that top level. And that's okay. Maybe you pivot to something else. But understanding that about yourself is a valuable skill in and of itself, and knowing how to
Mm-hmm.
deal with that.
I think that awareness is one of the like hardest pieces. Like, you just kind of went over it in one sentence, but like that awareness is so hard to capture, gain, or even like accept. Like, as you fight with your ego, right? Like, as let's say you're realizing that, yeah, I'm not the guy, or um like this anxiety is getting too much, or like I'm doing everything I can and it's not working out, but like that awareness of like, now it's time to move on, now it's
Yeah.
time to pivot, now it's that awareness, I think, because I've worked with a couple athletes that have gone through that, and I see them come in and out of like the Factory X fight team, and it's like that's a decision that weighs really heavily on athletes, because me and you went through it with wrestling too, but like you invest so much into this sport, right? There's no
Mm-hmm.
way to, like, we're talking about doing every single thing right and putting a lot of pressure on yourself, but like at a baseline level, I think MMA or wrestling put a higher prerequisite on investment than a lot of other sports, right? Just
Right.
simply by having to make weight, which controls another factor, another couple factors of your life, but um, yeah, that determination, that self awareness is huge, and like, and what I think is enviable with a lot of either champions or people that are finding relative success in their life is they have that awareness, and then they're one accurate with that awareness, which I think
Yep.
is an underrated skill, and then two, they take control of it and they can start to manipulate their like you said, their performance anxiety, um their ability to adapt to the situation and change either their thoughts, their behaviors, or their performance come when it comes time to shine. Because I think like some of those like things that are intangible or like get overlooked, like what's your pre-practice routine, or like what's your pre-fight routine, or like you said, you come to fight week, how are you behaving, how are you feeling? All those things are subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, people are born with it or they won't. But I think it's really enviable people that can replicate that, or people that can change that and start to manipulate that via a conscious effort, right? Um, like one guy that fought last night was Alexander Volkanovski,
Yeah.
and I think there's incredible like mental fortitude that he brings into every fight week, or even just his approach in general. That he is taking control of his mindset and his environment and his mental status as he goes either into fight week or, like I said, training, because he can consistently replicate a high level approach and performance,
Right.
right?
It's noticeable that he's put in the work to make sure that everything is going along with the plan. Like
Yeah.
it's noticeable that he has a plan, I guess, is because I
Hmm.
guess that's a major thing is not even having a plan for dealing with the stress that fight week is going to be. Right? So many people just jump into fight. Like I've been a part of fight weeks where people just jump in. They're like, "Well, we're here now. What are we gonna do?" And I'm like, "You didn't think about this. You didn't think about what you wanted to do on like Tuesday of fight week, right when the day we get there, and
Yeah.
you want to like get a shakeout in. No, we're just gonna watch TV. That I mean, it's okay if that's what you want to do, if that's part of the plan, but you should have something in place for this is what I'm doing at this time on Tuesday. This is what I'm doing at this time on Wednesday. This is going to be my self reflection time. And
Yeah.
I guess another part of being a professional is having a fucking schedule
Yeah.
because MMA is so spotty, right? Where you don't have to show up. You're not getting paid to practice. You're getting paid to fight. You can take 2 weeks off if you want to. That's not called being a professional though. like like
Yeah.
that's not if you're doing taking 2 weeks off, 2 weeks on for 3 months, that's not being a professional. That's being an
Yeah.
amateur. That's
Right.
that's that's not a job at that point. So you can't
Yeah.
really call yourself a professional fighter if you're not putting in the professional side of things. Then you're just a fighter.
Yeah. Or I mean, if that's outside the plan, right? Like a professional fighter can plan a 2 week vacation, sure, or whatever. But then,
Right, yeah, but
like when you
I'm
come
talking
back,
about making it a habit.
yeah, yeah, it's an interesting query, because again, I think that's a sliding scale for people. Like I think somebody can be a professional and take 2 weeks off, 2 weeks on, in the right timing and with the right plan.
I don't agree with you.
It's fair. We don't
Um,
agree a lot of things in this podcast, Austin.
yeah, but and the reason I don't agree with you is it would take an extremely special individual. That person has to be like a John Jones to be able to go 2 weeks off, 2 weeks on.
Yeah, and so not
Unless
like not
I
on a 52-week plan, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, but like maybe in like a 2 month stretch. We're gonna take a macro type of deload.
yeah, I mean, I guess if they're planning on taking like they're not fighting for 9 months, but if you're 4 months out from a fight,
Yeah,
you can't go
I
two
wouldn't
weeks
do
work and
that.
2 weeks break, right? It would have to be immediately after their fight or after their competition for that to be even negotiable.
Sure.
But
A
if
bigger point I'm trying to make is that a balance of work to rest is different for every individual.
oh for sure, yeah, it's gonna be unequal. I mean, there's the Dennis Rodmans out there. You got to let
Hmm.
them go to fucking Vegas for a weekend and just go be a crazy animal and then come back, right?
Yeah.
But the problem is that when that part starts to take over the pattern, and that's why I think just 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off is too much. Like go for a weekend, go for like a fucking Vegas weekend, go get your debauchery out of the way and come back. Whatever, not a big deal. We're getting back into training. But there's if you're going to take the play hard element, you also have to do the work hard element. and working hard, there is something to be said about piling on volume and consistency.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have that consistency, you're not going to see any improvements, because we know, as we've talked about, the number one element of improving is consistency.
Yeah. I think it's a pretty irrefutable statement.
Yeah. But yeah, dude, that's what I got on that. That turned into way more science. This was supposed to be a bullshit podcast, guys. We were going to show you guys a little personality, and that turned into kind of some thought stuff.
Maybe some science, maybe some Austin pretending to be a motivational speaker.
Yeah, a little bit of both. But too many people say they want to be great and don't actually want to be great.
Well,
And
yeah, that's fair.
it is an irking thing of mine as somebody that constantly tries to do the small stuff right now. But
Now, quote unquote.
yeah, well, I've that's the thing. I've seen it. I've seen it
Yeah.
fail in my own life. Like I thought I was doing everything. I thought that like when I was at lacrosse, I thought we used to fucking eat a goddamn quarter gallon of ice cream, a 2 liter of Mountain Dew, and a Little Caesars pizza after every competition.
Oh, yeah.
If I wanted to be a national champion, I would not have done that. And looking back on that now, like that's a non-negotiable. Like if I wanted to be a national champion, I should have done the little things right. I should have stayed locked in.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's the rational envy and jealousy of Dustin Wyman,
Yeah,
right? Like
100%.
everybody hated him and was pissed at him
Yeah,
because he did what nobody else could do.
yeah.
He
He did.
stayed fucking consistent.
He did the little things right.
He did every single little fucking thing right.
And
And like, yeah, I get with that. But I think that's where like giving context and continually um reanalyzing your self-awareness, that's where a role of a really good mentor or coach can play a huge role, is like continually context giving, right? Like when we were wrestling EWA Crosse, like it was a very subconscious goal. I want to be a national champion. I want to have success at this thing.
yeah,
But fucking also college idiots that want to live in the moment and have a great
right.
experience, right?
Yeah, like I had a blast at lacrosse. I guess to full circle, we talked about lacrosse to start.
There we go.
I had an amazing time at lacrosse, but I didn't accomplish what I planned on accomplishing when I got there. Not to say it was bad, but I just didn't do that, and I didn't align my habits and the small parts of my life with the goals that I thought I had.
Mm-hmm.
My work to goal ratio, I guess, it was completely off. Where I focused way more about on enjoying my time than on going after what I wanted to do or what I set out to do. And
Yeah.
that's okay. I got benefits out of it. That wasn't a bad thing. We're best friends now because I focused on that. But that being said, I didn't accomplish the goal, and that's only for me getting no money out of being a D3 national champion.
Yeah.
When you have somebody's life that's on the line, you have their family's income that's on the line, you have their legacy on the line, you don't have the liberty to fuck around and go after and
Find
do the
out.
small stuff, right?
Yeah.
You can go after and go have a fucking Little Caesars pizza every Friday after weigh-ins. Like you don't have that liberty. This is your legacy. This is your life. This is how your family eats. You have to do the little things right if you're a professional fighter, because this is how you chose to make a living.
Yeah.
You don't get that. You don't get to fuck around and get a degree too.
You want to know? You want to know who I was when I came to lacrosse to wrestle? I was the guy that came to fight week on Tuesday and didn't have any plans.
Yeah.
Got there. Well, what are we gonna do now?
Yeah.
You know, we're 2 months into the season. What do you want to do?
Yeah. But all right.
All right, man. Yeah, that's about all I got this morning.
Yeah. So if you guys got to get in touch with us, all of our info is in the show notes. If you want a piece of any of our programming, that's going to be our memberships, our presets, our customs. All that is at buildingafighter.com. This is the first drop. We're currently in the process of getting our own app under development, which is going to house our courses, our own, all of our strength and conditioning programming, and there's going to be a membership group option for coaches, therapists, and/or athletes that want to stay in touch with us and have constant contact. We are going to have a membership similar to like a Patreon available there as well. And that's going to be almost like a mastermind for working with combat athletics. So all of that is going to be hopefully a couple months away. I'm in the process. We're in the process of figuring that all out right now. And hopefully we're about 60 days from the launch of that. So keep your eye out. And again, all of our programming right now is at buildingafighter.com. This is Dr. Austin Shane.
Badass strength coach Alex Friedman.
And we are out.